Hello, I'm Zainab Badawi, and it's my great pleasure to be moderating the launch of this new initiative, Our World Heritage. Isn't it exciting to be part of a new initiative? And isn't it so important to be part of a new initiative like this? Why do we need it? Well, it's a new initiative to strengthen and renew global heritage and the conservation process, something we absolutely need to do. Of course, UNESCO, which by the way celebrates 75th anniversary today. Happy birthday, UNESCO, on reaching 75. And boy, have you done a great job in this area, UNESCO, over so many years. And I'm delighted, by the way, you will hear from her later on, that we have a former wonderful Director General of UNESCO, Irina Bokova, who joins us, and she's going to be sharing her very important insights with us. So we have part of the UNESCO family, as it were, with us. But UNESCO, of course, has done a great deal over many decades in this area, and a lot of standout projects it's initiated, starting with the reclamation of the ancient Egyptian and ancient Sudanese sites in southern Egypt and northern Sudan, and Timbuktu more recently under Irina Bokova when she was Director General. And in fact, some of its best known World Heritage sites are, the most visited areas in the world, and it counts 1,120 sites globally under its World Heritage Convention. But you know what? The World Heritage Convention is 50 years old, and it's under strain, and it needs to be revivified and rejuvenated. And that's what this new initiative is about, because our conservation and heritage sites are under assault from so many different directions: conflict, natural disasters, infrastructure building, you name it. And so we really need to assess whether the old system of listing sites is sufficient to protect these very, very important sites globally. So that's what this new World Heritage Initiative is about. It's bringing together so many players: civil society, academics, NGOs, interested citizens, to kind of operate as a watchdog and then have a dialogue with governments and policymakers to make sure that we are doing the right things to protect our heritage sites. We've got a wonderful panel lined up for you, and some videos. And let us indeed kick off by playing this first video, which is going to really outline for us the very important issues at stake. So please play the first video. Thank you.
Visitation to heritage sites and museums and cultural venues has plummeted, and with a looming crisis. The COVID pandemic's catastrophic impact on the world's economy has not spared heritage. Practically all international tourism has stopped, with domestic travel greatly reduced. Visitation to heritage sites and museums and cultural venues has plummeted, and with it the income it provided for the preservation, protection and day-to-day functioning of these treasured places. Early estimates show heritage sites losing half their revenue. Parks and monuments are left unguarded as rangers and staff are let go or quarantined. Reports show poaching is increasing dramatically. And it's not just the sites. The people that rely on them for their livelihood are also now at risk. In Cambodia, for example, 1 in 8 jobs are tied to heritage tourism. Governments alone cannot solve this. They need to work hand in hand with civil society and find new ways to ensure the needed flow of resources.
An upsurge in disasters and conflicts. Increasing rates of disaster and conflict are a growing source of concern for the conservation of these sites. In recent years, the world has painfully watched as the rate of catastrophes that strike our heritage has increased. From earthquakes in Haiti and Nepal, to volcanic eruptions and tsunamis in Indonesia, or fires from Notre Dame to Australia, our past is disappearing despite protections. Conflicts and unrest, from Syria to Mali, Afghanistan to Libya, and Iraq to Yemen, has also brought massive destruction. Natural sites, like the Great Park of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, have not been spared, as militias and poachers place the survival of immensely important species in grave danger.
The conservation of our world's heritage cannot be ensured when unsustainable development prevails. Sadly, once listed and discovered, sites can easily fall victim to over-tourism, often displacing local communities with big commerce and threatening a site's very survival. Heritage cannot be protected where deforestation and resource exploitation predominate, pollution is widespread, and local communities are not empowered. And our energy and resource use, both locally and globally, is changing the climate at sites in every nation. Already, the effects of rising global temperatures on heritage can be seen in mass coral death on the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, flooding at sites from Prague to Penang and Venice, and the rapid disappearance of the glaciers at Mount Kilimanjaro and the Himalayas. Sustainable development is key to heritage protection.
Human rights and memory. Heritage bears a strong link to our individual and collective identities. It represents our complex past and embodies the many values of a society. But does World Heritage today, in its celebration and protection of selected places, truly honor and recognize the diverse stories of all communities, or just of the powerful, or that which is in vogue? Sites of conscience, of conflict, of migrants, minorities, and more are part of our shared history as well. There are great challenges in the implementation of World Heritage that urgently need to be addressed.
Politics and the will to conserve. For almost 50 years, World Heritage has been a global name for conservation, and yet many sites are threatened by the same governments that are supposed to protect them. Political and economic interests increasingly prevail over preservation, as in the Silus in Tanzania, where a dam is threatening the survival of the game preserve, or at Machu Picchu, where an airport is being planned.
But I think you got a gist there of the very, very important issues that we are discussing today from a range of voices. So here we are. It's the 48th anniversary of the World Heritage Convention, the 75th anniversary of the founding of UNESCO. So a very important time to be discussing this issue and also to try to get things straight before we celebrate that landmark 50th anniversary in a couple of years' time. So let me just very quickly ask my panel, why do you want to be part of this new World Heritage Initiative? Cyril Kormus, you're from California, United States, and you're very much an environmentalist who's involved in World Heritage matters with IUCN, of course, which is the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And you're founder of Wild Heritage, which is an international NGO which is dedicated to natural heritage conservation. So just a rapid fire from all of you panel. Cyril, why do you want to be part of this initiative?
Well, thank you, Zainab. Whenever you have a political process which is not functioning as well as you would like it, it's really important to shine a very, very bright light on it and really raise awareness. And that's something that's still lacking, surprisingly, with this World Heritage Convention, I think, in the conservation community. This convention actually is not as well understood as a lot of the other conventions that we operate with on a daily basis, like climate change or biodiversity. But I think the key message here that we want to bring out with this initiative, which is really positioned to reach hundreds of thousands of people around the world, is that this World Heritage, our World Heritage, is really a litmus test. If we fail in these places, the chances are we're going to fail everywhere. So we really cannot afford to let our World Heritage go. And so this initiative can carry this message. It can bring a laser-like focus on the issues, tell the full story in a grassroots way, which is not currently being done.
All right, thanks very much. Nelly Robles from Oaxaca, Mexico. Hello, hola. You're the archaeologist who's very much directed the site of Monte Alban, I think it is, and you're now in charge of World Heritage Matters for the National Institute of Anthropology and History. You're a very important lady, Nelly. So Nelly, I'm sure you agree with what Cyril has just said there, but just outline for me and us why you want to be part of this new World Heritage Convention.
I guess this platform gives us a lot of room for discussing issues that we have thought along the years while we are in the field, committed to do the job for the sites. We find out that there are many issues that we have discussed several times with people in a very informal way. The convention is a great initiative, a great tool, a great text to all of us do the job, but actually it has some holes and it has some new knowledge that we have to address in these times. There are issues like, for example, understanding stakeholders. To give you an idea, one of the keys of the convention. Okay. Who are the stakeholders? Who are them? Why we are not getting together with all of them to discuss what is the best manners to conduct the jobs or the tasks in the World Heritage sites.
All right, we'll come back, Nelly. You don't have to do it all now. We'll come back. Just wanted to get a rapid fire kind of reaction from you. We'll come back and hear about the stakeholders issue you're making there. So just press the pause button for a moment. Arun Bogchi from Maharashtra in India, you were Secretary for Tourism and Heritage in Maharashtra before you were working for the government of India, and later you developed a career in international development. So these topics are very, very important to you. So just tell us why you want to support this new Our World Heritage Initiative. You need to unmute. We can't hear you. You need to unmute. Not very good at lip reading yet.
Okay.
There you go.
Yes. In several of my when I was working as a bureaucrat, I came across this convention and its importance to protecting heritage of all kinds, particularly the vernacular as well as the big monuments and so on. Along with that, I found that more and more there were clashes within the sectors. There's tourism sort of conflicting with the heritage aspects of what the places that they were visiting. And at the same time, I have also seen that there's a lot of other initiatives outside of the administration and outside of the bureaucracy of the World Heritage Center that's doing tremendous work. And I think this is a great time when we are struggling with all the big issues affecting our heritage to bring some of these outside voices back into the debate and to see how we can work more closely with those who have gone on their own and really understood the principles of how important it is to be a one world in the true sense in terms of sharing our heritage, sharing our problems and finding solutions together.
Great. Okay. We look forward to hearing a bit more from you shortly. Charlotte Carabui, Natural Heritage Conservation Expert, and you're working with the Mather Foundation in Geneva, I believe, and you're in charge of managing their Dakar central office and all the projects in West Africa. So a huge region you have there to deal with. So why do you think we need this World Heritage, our World Heritage Initiative? Why are you part of it?
Thank you, Zainab. You know, this is a very timely initiative, actually. You know, I was lucky enough to work on the IUCN World Heritage panel, where, you know, you have to look at the applications. I also work with a lot of World Heritage sites, and what I see is the question, where is civil society? And also, I see this convention is so away. She's very far away. We need to bring it back closer to the people, closer to those who are really managing and living in the World site. So World Heritage site. So that's why I think it's important to support this initiative.
Thanks. And Jad Tabet from Beirut, Lebanon. Ahlan wa sahlan. Assalamu alaikum. Ahlan. And so, okay, so Jad, you're obviously from Lebanon and you're an architect and planner and very much an expert in World Heritage matters. And of course, you've got your wonderful sites, Byblos and all the rest of it in Lebanon. And you've also twice been a member of the World Heritage Committee. So just outline for us why you want to be part of this initiative.
True. I have been in the World Heritage Committee during 8 years. And during these years, I could discover how much the convention is a fantastic tool for protecting and conserving world heritage, be it natural, cultural, or mixed. But in the same time, I could discover the challenges that the convention faces due to obviously excessive politicization, but also due to regional and thematic imbalance. You know, we often speak about something we call the Gothic Cathedral syndrome. The number of Gothic cathedrals inscribed on the convention is huge, but also mainly due to the focus just on the process of inscription of properties on the list, disregarding conservation and management issues.
Right.
So now I think it's essential that the convention should open up largely to civil society, and instead of being limited to governmental institutions. The real problem here is that when you limit the convention to governmental institutions, the focus becomes basically inscription, inscription, inscription.
All right. We'll hear some more about that because I know that's a viewpoint that many of you share, but thank you very much indeed. And Irina is listening, I know, because I'm not going to come to Irina now. She's going to make some remarks, some closing remarks for us at the end of all this. So she's listening to what the panel is saying, will be responding to that. Cyril, let me go back to you. So you've played a very important role in international organizations dedicated to the protection of natural heritage. And you said in your opening remarks that you feel that there are huge deficiencies with the current natural heritage in international protection system. So just give us those reasons why. What are the problems?
Well, as Jad just alluded to, the convention itself is really an important and wonderful mechanism that could work very well. The problem isn't really with the convention. The problem is that the way the convention is being applied has become very problematic. But let me just take a step back and say, the convention was conceived years ago as a mechanism to protect the really best places on Earth, the really truly exceptional places, which were under serious threat. And unfortunately, those threats still exist. And in addition to all the traditional threats, the large scale infrastructure, the dams, the mines, et cetera, now we've added climate change and pandemic. So if anything, the convention is even more relevant today than it was back in 1972. And the convention is very unique in a number of additional respects. It's the only international instrument that brings nature and culture together. It protects very large areas, which is what we need to do right now. It's still very prestigious. It's increasingly a mechanism to recognize rights, which is crucial. So it is a very unique and important and good mechanism that we need to uphold. The problem is, as Jad was saying, when it becomes so politicized that the existing sites are neglected and badly neglected, sometimes overtly neglected when we allow huge developments to occur right in the middle of these places. And also this problem that we have this excessive focus on adding new sites without first taking care of the old sites. But what I would say is that these places really are a litmus test. It really is about building back better now with the pandemic. It really offers us an opportunity to change and do better in ways that we haven't in the past. And World Heritage has to be a fundamental part of building back better. We cannot leave World Heritage out of the picture. We cannot leave these natural sites, which if we don't protect, will really have a serious risk of making the whole planet uninhabitable. Right. So the real challenge is making the convention actually do simply what it was meant to do. It's really allowing it to function the way it was intended to function. The mechanism is sound, but we're not making sure that it works and is applied in the way that we would like it to.
Yeah, Nelly, you just heard Cyril there say, you know, that the need to build back better must include, you know, work in the heritage area. So just tell us, because you belong to the Mixteca indigenous people, give us an idea of how the current economic crisis in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting the management and conservation of sites in Mexico.
Oh, it is affecting the World Heritage sites in all ways, in all manners, because the sites are closed. It's been 8 months so far that we have all the sites closed. There is no money for the immediate needs. There is no resources for the basic maintenance. There is nothing. So the people living around the sites and people that live by the jobs produced by those sites, like Oaxaca, where I live, everybody lives out of tourism, the tourism that is attracted by Monte Alban and the historic district of Oaxaca. There is no money in the city. There is nothing to do. So it is a tremendous drama, a tremendous crisis that this pandemic is taking everybody to. But on the other hand, there is a lot of room for academics to explore and to come up with better ideas for the management of these archaeological and cultural sites. I will try to follow a little bit on what Kirill said on the natural issues, because I think one of the main issues on the convention is that we try to separate cultural from natural, and for an indigenous world, natural and cultural are the same thing. It is all heritage. We have heritage recognized in the mountains, in the rivers, in the environment. We have heritage recognized in our wind, for example. We don't necessarily think in separating the two worlds. And that's, I guess, one of the discussions we will always have with the convention. Why separating the site from its environment? I think it is not a good idea, because that has taken us to confront in the academics on what is said by the local people, by the indigenous people, the concepts that the indigenous groups can have on their broadest concept of heritage, against what the academic says. We have in archaeology, a version of what happened in Monte Alban, for example, but we haven't paid enough attention on what the Zapotecs that still live in Oaxaca think about Monte Alban, and we don't have much opening to include those ideas and all those kinds of values in the day-to-day management of our sites. So I guess it is one of the issues that gives a lot of room for discussion, a lot of room for serious changes in the discourse of this convention. And I guess we need to get together, but seriously, with indigenous communities and learn from them. We need to learn a lot from our indigenous people.
Thank you so much for that. And of course, what you say about your indigenous people is applicable to indigenous people all over the world.
That's right.
We need to ensure that heritage sites are not decoupled from their environment. Thank you so much for that. Aruna, the other point that Nelly was making there was, obviously we know that the slump in the tourism industry and travel and so on has really badly affected the tourist industry all over the world. And I know that there have been conversations in the past about how tourism can better deal with heritage sites. You know, we've seen the problems in Venice, in Italy, and all the rest of it. But how far do you think that the crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and the slump in tourism can be addressed by the convention, by governments, by civil society organizations? Does it have a role to play, and how?
Well, I think the relationship between heritage and tourism is fraught with problems. So one is dependent on the other, and there is a relationship that could have become much more positive, but it hasn't for one reason or another. I think the convention itself has tried to address this by having impact assessments and trying to see how it could be solved at a particular level. But the issues are so big that they require all of civil society and all of the governments and tourism people to sit together and see how we can work together to improve the way that we are functioning at the moment with the convention. One of the areas is that the tourism planners have their own logic, of course, in wanting to increase numbers and so on. Now that this pandemic has struck them, I think they themselves have also realized that the way that they have developed their industry is itself unsustainable. To think of these huge ships that take tourists out onto isolated places, it's not sustainable. So the management and the pulls and pressures on the sites has become so much that we just need to sit back and rethink this. And in many of these discussions, I find that sometimes the people concerned with heritage from a human perspective or from the public tend to think of governments as a problem, actually. But actually, we need to understand what compels the governments also to do what they are doing. So unless we have a more direct input from civil society as a whole, and understand the people's necessity of retaining these as basic knowledge systems. What we have in heritage, whether it's archaeology or other aspects of our heritage, is really the knowledge systems embedded in that. And that is what all of us need to draw on and preserve for the future. And that effort has yet to come out, I think, to the same extent as it could come out. Right. And so the only way forward is a very wide-ranging debate about what ails the convention at the moment, but also what can bring it out of this and what future we can hold if we work together between academics and the government and people in the industry right across the board.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Aruna. Thank you. Very interesting. Charlotte, we heard in that collection of voices in that opening video about the threats to heritage sites. And you've done a lot trying to protect African natural heritage sites. And indeed, you're in charge of several conservation programs. So just looking at this aspect of the threats like poaching, resource exploitation, mining, and other development pressures, has World Heritage been effective in protecting these sites from these threats? And if not, how do you think the situation could be improved?
Thanks, Zainab. Actually, it's, World Heritage sites are supposed to be what we call la crème de la crème, really the best and really best managed sites. So unfortunately, if you look at World Heritage sites in Africa at least, they have not been really conserved or protected as they should. And even the last report, IUCN, World Heritage Outlook report, shows that half of the World Heritage sites in Africa are really not well protected. They are even in critical conditions. And only a third, or let's say 30% of those sites are having effective management. So this is of a concern, because if you look at the benefits that normally a site would expect from being listed, among other things, it's really being better protected, getting maybe more funding, getting more resources, getting access to technical and support and so on. But it's not the case. So I think that there are a few key points that are very important if one would like to improve the situation of World Heritage sites in Africa. I think that the first one is real political commitment from the government, because I think it's not enough just to get the nomination to be listed. You also need to invest in maintaining or enhancing the, the value, outstanding universal value of the site. And one of the things that also doesn't happen, should be happening more, is decision-making, really policy decision-making, taking into account the existence of those sites. When you see decisions, for instance, on development, on infrastructure development, on mining, on oil and gas, is this really being, is this taking into account the existence and the value of the World Heritage Site? No. In terms of funding, I know many sites that are not receiving any euro from the government. So I think there is, a need for more involvement in this. The second point I would like the third I would like to raise is in terms of involving all the stakeholders. And I would like to come back to the civil society, because I think that civil society is really one of the most important pillars of conservation and of sustainable development anyway. So if you look at the role of NGOs in some countries, for instance, I know countries where NGOs are doing the conservation work on the ground, but when it comes to discussing, the priorities of World Heritage sites and so on, they are not involved. I'm thinking also of what Nelly was saying, the local and indigenous people. How are they empowered really, not only to take control of the governance and of the management of the sites, but how are they benefiting from those protected areas and from those heritage sites? I would not like to forget the research part, because we have been seeing that good decision-making needs also good science. So involving the scientific community is absolutely key. And we are not doing this. Many of those heritage sites, for instance, are not having the necessary and adequate monitoring and evaluation. So, and if you want to do that, you need some good information, some good data that comes also from science. And maybe I would finish talking about the private sector. We never talk about the private sector, and they are the ones who are investing actually in and around those sites.
Thank you. A lot of stakeholders that you've mentioned there. Thanks very much indeed, Charlotte. So, Jad, I know as an architect, you've been involved during your life in many crises, sadly, in your country, and obviously you've had the Beirut explosion. Yes, and a civil war, of course, which lasted 15 years and caused a lot of destruction and so on. How effective do you think the World Heritage Convention is in protecting heritage in conflict situations? Does it have any teeth?
Well, as a matter of fact, in large parts of the world, and particularly in Africa and in the Middle East, heritage is at the center of conflicts and violence. Out of 53 properties included in the list of World Heritage in danger, 34 properties representing almost 2/3 of the total number of properties inscribed on the list in danger were inscribed and are still maintained in the list because of the threats generated by conflicts, violence, and civil unrest. Charlotte just spoke about the natural sites in Africa. We should know that most of the natural sites in Africa that are inscribed on the list in danger are facing threats due to violence and to unrest. So, in fact, heritage is at the heart of these issues of violence and conflicts. Those who seek to destroy heritage, be it tangible or intangible, reject the diversity that comes from the interaction of cultures and civilizations, which makes heritage inclusive and shared. What we see in the Middle East and also in Africa, in some regions, what we see goes beyond the racism. It is the denial of human values. It's the rejection of persons' humanity. And the people impacted by violence are the very people that guard and carry forward heritage. When they are driven out of their homes, on the roads, in refugee camps, they are cut off their heritage and of their cultural memory. For children, for teenagers whose entire lives are marked by conflicts, their only memories is that of violence and displacement. To preserve heritage, to prevent the extension of violence to other parts of the world, we have to reconnect people with the cultural memory. UNESCO has a central role, a major role to play in this regard. Don't forget that the preamble of UNESCO Constitution that came out in 1945 after the horrors of the two World Wars, this preamble declares that since wars begin in the minds of man, and we now say since violence begins in the mind of human beings, it is in the minds of human beings that the defense of peace must be constructed. UNESCO has launched several initiatives to protect heritage in danger due to conflicts. In Afghanistan, in Mali, in Iraq, etc. A lot has been done, but this is not enough. Too often, civil society was excluded from the recovery process, and the cooperation was limited exclusively with governmental institutions. The approach to heritage protection in conflict situation cannot work this way. It should be a holistic approach incorporating education, culture, and community values. And it should include the largest participation of civil society. Given the scale of the problems, UNESCO should now, to my point of view, should now develop new tools to act quickly on emergency situations. It should seek to play a leading role among other UN agencies, UNHCR, UNICEF, etc., for international interventions related to education and culture in regions in conflict, and it should establish the largest cooperation possible with civil societies. This is the real way to try to protect heritage in situation of conflicts, of wars, of violence, which is at the heart of the convention. Let me insist on the fact that the list in danger is the basic, for me, the core of the convention. The original idea of the convention was to mobilize international cooperation to protect sites that are in danger and that face threats. So for me, this is the heart of the convention, the list in danger. Thank you.
Thank you. I see you had some well-prepared remarks there, Jad, but thank you for setting out your case very clearly there. So really a panel, I mean, there isn't time to generate discussion, you know, cross-fertilization and so on. It's a series of questions, but let me ask you, all of you, this in your closing remarks, and if you could keep them relatively brief. So, you know, you're all working in your own particular areas and fields of interests and regions and countries and so on. But how can you all come together under this new banner, this new initiative of Our World Heritage, to push the World Heritage Convention into the areas that we've been discussing, to address the deficits, to bring on, you know, greater cooperation, dialogue and coordination with stakeholders, civil society and so on? How can Our World Heritage bring about this much needed change that you all say is necessary? So I'll come to you first, Cyril. Thanks.
Thank you, Zainab. Well, I think that it's really a question of reframing the issues so that they're really truly well understood. I think if we explain as a collective group through our World Heritage that World Heritage really is our collective memory. And if we lose that, if we lose our natural and cultural heritage, it's really a dehumanizing influence. And if we lose our natural heritage in particular, we make the planet uninhabitable. So I think that if we reframe it as this is where we start to rebuild better, this is the litmus test for how well we can fight climate change and save the diversity of life on Earth and keep wild places on the planet. If we understand it as a collective effort to preserve our collective memory, to preserve the habitability of the planet, and to build back better a different, more just, and better functioning ecological system, then we have a chance. It must be understood that this is not a brand. It's not a nice logo that you put on a site to attract tourists. It's not something abstract. It's not something European or American. It's really our global heritage that's at stake. And if we frame it that way, and if we say this is where we have to start to build a better planet, I think people will come to this concept. And this group is extremely well positioned and has come at exactly the right time to do this as we lead up to the 50th anniversary.
Fantastic, thank you. And Nelly, briefly, please, how can this new initiative really effect change? Briefly, thank you.
Yeah, I think I will insist in the need to go deep in concepts. This group gives us the opportunity to speak freely on all the many issues that we have on the table. So I think that is one of the values of being together with a lot of scientists and people from the society in a group like this. So I guess for the research that we usually do, we have to go a little bit to the grounds on the concepts. I guess the same convention gives us a lot of information, a lot of concepts that we have been using only on the surface. We need to go deep and understand what the signing people intended to do.
Thank you. As an archaeologist, you will want to dig deep. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Of course, that is always my tendency.
Yeah, good. Aruna, just how can this bring about change? Briefly, if you would, because we're short of time.
Well, change continues to happen, whether we like it or not. It's a question of how we can, as a community of those who are aware that heritage is, in a sense, our personality, it is our humanism, as we say, and who respect diversity, to try and get all the others who are surprisingly not anti-diversity, except where it affects their political rights and political issues, to get that message that diversity is something that the world really should be proud of. That message, I think, can only come through conversations. It's across generations, across genders, across peoples and their races, across countries. And it's only when we respect diversity in a true sense will we realize that what we have in this on this earth is really a very, very rich biodiversity as well as people's diversity.
Thank you. Just very briefly, closing remark from you, Charlotte.
Yeah, thanks, Zainab. I follow up on what Aruna is saying. I think that diversity is important, and I would even challenge our community to address this diversity question, even in the way this community will be working. You know, who will be advocating for World Heritage and where? We need to be as inclusive as possible. We need to involve those people who are on the ground working in these sites. Otherwise, it will remain a thing from elsewhere. It won't work. The second point for me, collaboration with the government, with the convention. We need to do that. Otherwise, it won't work. And the last point for me, please, let us be a community not only of guardians who want to alert, to be able to see how it works. You said, Zainab, watchdogs, but let us also be witnesses who talk about what is going well, the many small successes that are happening. We need also to talk about that to inspire others. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the best practice bit. Jad, I saw you scribbling. Don't tell me you're writing another speech. Just to...
No, no, no. I'm just taking notes about what they are saying.
Okay. So just very brief.
Very briefly, you asked, what do we have in common? We're coming from different places, different countries, etc., etc. We have environmental issues, first of all. Environmental issues are common to all of us. We have the pressure due to imbalanced development, which is common to all of us. Nelly spoke about the link between cultural and natural heritage. I would also add intangible heritage, which is also part of this whole heritage approach, let's say. Our group, I think, should seek to become a sort of pressure group that establish dialogue with all the actors of the convention and with civil society outside, in order to push things to the front and to solve the real problems and the real issues and the real challenges that the convention is facing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much indeed, because it is our world heritage. And as you say, you're all united with this common vision and common purpose. Panel, thank you so much. It's been fascinating listening to all of you, and I wish you well in all your various ventures. And in fact, this Our World Heritage Initiative is already gaining traction, and we're going to play you now a video of how we are getting support for the initiative from some institutions. So let's play that video. Thank you. And then we'll come to you, Irina.
Dear colleagues from around the world, as Secretary General of Europa Nostra, the European voice of civil society committed to cultural heritage, I wish a very warm welcome to the launch of Our World Heritage. In today's trying times, this citizens' initiative brings us another sign of hope and renewed faith in the power of solidarity and common action. Our world heritage is indeed our shared legacy, our shared resource, and our shared responsibility. We wish you every success. You can count on Europa Nostra to contribute actively to this vital endeavor.
I want to show my strong support for the Our World Heritage Initiative. WWF has long advocated for greater transparency and accountability around natural world heritage sites, as these places are home to threatened biodiversity, they increase resilience to climate change and weather-related disasters, and support livelihood for communities. Yet, natural heritage sites are continually facing large-scale threats and degradation that often come from those meant to protect these places. This is unacceptable, and the failure of the commitment to protect these sites for their universal value to present and future humanity. This initiative is a vital step in casting a spotlight on the World Heritage Convention, entrusted to protect unique landmarks and seamarks of natural and human history. Do count on WWF support as the Our World Heritage Initiative begins to engage governments, civil society, and the private sector in crucial dialogues. There's never been a more crucial time to halt the loss of nature and its vital services to humanity. That time is now.
Cultural heritage is created by people and it should benefit people. For the past 55 years, World Monuments Fund has been working with local communities on more than 700 projects all around the globe. We support this initiative because we think that civil society plays an essential role in preserving World Heritage sites. Civil society participation is crucial to ensure that these incredible places continue to be relevant and help local communities thrive. Our planet faces unprecedented and dramatic change. Climate change, conflicts, disasters, imbalanced tourism threaten all types of heritage sites in every corner of the planet. The current pandemic has highlighted the profound interconnectedness of our world. We hope that this Our World Heritage Initiative will facilitate the development of coordinated responses to these global challenges. Together, we can innovate. We can create a more harmonious world where the past and the present cohabitate, where local communities and their cultural heritage are recognized and respected, and where we and our children have the capacity to appreciate our history, respect our differences, and better understand each other. Thank you.
Je suis président du conseil d'administration de la Coalition internationale des sites de conscience et ancien fonctionnaire de l'UNESCO, directeur du département du dialogue interculturel et interreligieux. Je soutiens très fort cette initiative parce que la convention et la problématique du patrimoine est dans un tournant historique. Il faut revisiter les fondamentaux de la convention et du patrimoine et faire un retour critique donc et prospective et faire en sorte que la convention puisse répondre aux enjeux actuels en ce qui concerne la question du patrimoine. Et donc cette initiative est extrêmement féconde parce qu'elle permet à des personnalités, des individus, des hommes et des femmes qui ont été impliqués dans la question du patrimoine de pouvoir joindre ensemble leurs réflexions pour pouvoir amener les transformations nécessaires. Et la coalition des sites de conscience, pour nous, le mot de conscience devrait être le concept qui doit irriguer le futur de la convention et du patrimoine.
And, you know, your efforts, particularly in Timbuktu, were really, really so effective there. And I'm sure that you have many admirers who are now listening to this. And of course, you're highly sought after now on the world stage as a lecturer and at various institutions. So you've heard what the panel has said so far. And I just wondered if you wanted to reflect on some of the things that you've heard in terms of what you think the major challenges are in facing the World Heritage Convention and how initiatives like this Our World Heritage one can help it address the challenges better.
Thank you very much, Zainab, for this very kind presentation. I have to say that listening to this wonderful and passionate debate, I thought I know a lot, but still I took down notes. And let me start by saying that I'm happy to be with you once again, because I know how much you care about history and heritage. just watching your wonderful BBC series on the history of Africa, which were partly probably inspired by UNESCO's series also of the general histories of Africa. And once again, showing that our common history matters nowadays, diversity matters, biodiversity matters. And now that we are one side celebrating the 75th anniversary of UNESCO, approaching the 50th anniversary of the World Heritage Convention, indeed, it's the right time to think again. Because it's, if I can be a little bit on the positive, optimistic side, yes, of course, there are many challenges, but we should recognize that it's a huge success. It is probably, in my mind, personal, it's the most transformative idea of the 20th century. If you come to think of it a little bit, inscribing sites from all different cultures around the world based on outstanding universal value. It's extraordinary concept. It's unifying concept, something that we still need so much today in the challenges that we have. And also that is why when somebody destroys such a heritage, we're all diminished. We are all hurt, albeit this may not be our religion, our culture, it may happen in a distant place. So it's, to some extent, I would say that it became victim of its own success. That is why today we speak about these challenges, that sometimes it's reduced to a very narrow political agenda, so local political agenda or otherwise. Taking into account that still it's the most widely ratified convention, international law in human history. 193 governments, countries, states have adhered to it. It's a huge success. And that is why we should not just release governments by launching such initiatives from their responsibility. They have a responsibility. As many of the panelists just said, inscribing a site does not mean the end of the journey. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of protection. It's the beginning of inscribing it in local contexts. But the challenges that we see nowadays, unsustainable tourism, we are not against tourism, but unsustainable tourism, or climate change, which becomes one of the biggest neglect, lack of financial resources, shying away the local communities or the experts is really something that bothers me. So I do believe this is an important initiative. I remember when we celebrated the 40th anniversary, and for, my colleagues from UNESCO know very well, it was under the title of World Heritage and Local Communities. I think we have to make a step forward and to enlarge it and to say, indeed, it's civil society that has to play a role, because otherwise we cannot sustain the current developments and respond to the current challenges.
So, I mean, you know, we've heard a lot, and you obviously endorse this, that the convention needs to become more people-oriented when you say it has to engage civil society. But do you have any ideas how that could be done? I mean, is it through an enhanced consultation process? Would that be enough? Or can you think of more profound ways that you could get them involved in changing the management of World Heritage?
You know, I think the idea of all the experts around this initiative and the concerned citizens, I think it's great. As you said, and I think everybody that mentioned here and that participated, and Cyril and Charlotte and Rune and Jat and Nelly, everybody was mentioning that it really belongs to the people. At the end of the day, it is our heritage. It is the humanity's history, nature, in exchange with this nature, and all the messages that are related in the diversity of it. If we don't energize, we don't get around all the energy of communities, of civil society, of experts, of citizens around it with all the challenges. Let me just mention climate change or urbanization. We will not cope with the pressure. And it is not by chance that for the first time in the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations, in the goal number 11 about urban development, but it goes beyond, for the first time, heritage protection are included, and generally culture in other goals, as drivers of sustainable development. I don't believe that we can indeed build back better, as we were speaking, and achieve the agenda for sustainable development, which stays as a bigger framework of our international commitment and action. We will not achieve this without including heritage protection, conservation, and culture, because it's not about a beauty contest at the end of the day, whose heritage is better, and this is around the politicization. We just have to look at with the eyes, indeed, broad eyes, I would say, of the civil society. And probably I will end with that. Very often I have confronted people who were saying, oh, heritage, it's about the past, you know, now we have other challenges we have to, and I always responded, heritage protection is not about the past. It is about the future, in fact. What kind of humanity and what kind of future we want to have for humanity. So I do applaud this initiative.
Thank you so much indeed, Irina Bokova, as always, for articulating very profound initiatives like this in a very simple, compelling way. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. So we leave you with this launch of Our World Heritage with a selection of voices from all over the world who are providing us with a rallying cry to really try and get some momentum behind this initiative. So let's hear those voices in our final video now, please.
Patrimonio mondiale incarna i più grandi ideali delle Nazioni Unite, un grande sforzo collaborativo da parte dei popoli del mondo per salvaguardare tutti i tesori della terra, la nostra storia comune e le nostre meraviglie naturali. I principi di questa grande e unificante convenzione sono in grave pericolo. We urgently need to act to save our world's heritage and renew its purpose.
To start, we must address the impact of the current economic crisis in heritage. 政府必须提升对遗产地的支持，例如制定更好的保护政策，探讨更为合理的保護科學，以及確保遺產地獲得恰當的經濟資源來保護我們的世界遺產。हमारे विश्व के धरोहर आज खतरे इसके कई कारण हैं, जैसे कि कमजोर राजनीतिक इच्छा शक्ति, संसाधनों की कमी, प्राकृतिक आपदाएं एवं विश्व के कई हिस्सों में फैला संघर्ष. We must give priority to preparedness, prevention and responsive action to limit damage to our world heritage.
광산개발, 벌목, 원유가스, 광산개발, 대중관광, 토지 투기, 기반시설을 위한 산림훼손, 도시 팽창은 우리의 유산을 위협하고 있습니다. We need to stop unsustainable development processes and give priority to the conservation of our world heritage.
El excesivo enfoque en la nominación de sitios ha llevado a una peligrosa politización del patrimonio mundial y su toma de decisiones. We need to renew the original ideals of the treaty and give priority back to real conservation action instead of the simple listing of our world heritage.
Ekulondvoloteni nekwenta kutsi sigcine imigomo yekulondvolota emafa emhlabeni wonke jikelele. Kumcoka kutsi sicinise inzima ledlalwa lolu. Hayi nje imigomo yelive nebuholi, kodwa imigomo yawonke wonke emhlabeni jikelele. Asindlondlobalise umbono lothi kulondvolota emagugu nebuve ngiko kanye lokudlala inzima lenkulu ekuthuthukiseni bantfu nemnotfo emimangweni yethu. We must open our world heritage to the independent and informed input of the public.
Our World Heritage, an open initiative born of crisis, launches today. In 2021, we are organizing a series of debates on critical issues facing world heritage to lay the groundwork for a 2022 Global Forum on Solutions, which will take place on the 50th anniversary of World Heritage. To join us, go to OurWorldHeritage.org and participate in the debates. Also, you can help us develop proposals and petitions for reform. At last, you can help create a global network that reaches all corners of the world, so that together we can celebrate and protect our world heritage.